And for more on this is Senior Director and Fellow at the Foundation for Defense for Democracies, Behnam Ben Taleblu, and former Netanyahu advisor and editor at the Jewish News Syndicate, Ruthie Bloom. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Ruthie, we just watched one of the most consequential days in modern history take place, and all the living hostages free. We showed those images in Zach Anders' report, and an end to the fighting in Gaza. So what are your first thoughts?
Well, first of all, we've all been weeping since yesterday. I mean, myself included. Every time you see these pictures, you just can't, especially when you're a parent, as I am. And I'm a parent also of a son who fought in Gaza to find those hostages. It is incredibly moving. But I would like to say, without being too negative, that we have to, though President Trump deserves so much credit for this, and he got a deserved warm bath at the Knesset yesterday when he made this long speech. It was wonderful. And Prime Minister Netanyahu has been fantastic. But to view this as a long-term peace agreement is premature. And that isn't because of the rest of the Middle East. It's because we're still dealing with religious fanatics and global jihad. Hamas is just one tiny part of that. And so we can't forget that. And Israel has to keep its powder dry.
Yeah, it is still a very sobering moment, so appreciate that, Ruthie. Behnam, after signing the historic Gaza deal in Egypt, President Trump says he is feeling pretty hopeful. He thinks more Arab and Muslim countries could soon hop on board with the Abraham Accords, as he says. Could this be a new chapter for the Middle East?
Well, it certainly should be a new chapter for the Middle East. The question is, will Arab and Muslim leaders take it? And what are the building blocks to move from ceasefire to peace in the region? I share, actually, Ruthie's skepticism that a lot of these ceasefires or the military wins of Israel can immediately be turned into a political win, given, again, the hostility and the ideologies that are at play here. Nonetheless, I think something very, very important has been done by Israel and by America, which is the discrediting of these violent, extremist, terrorist ideologies and actually showing the world that, yes, you can actually fight back. And perhaps that can be sufficient political and even legal cover to get some of those other leaders to potentially engage in deconfliction, if not normalization, which would lead to a better, brighter, and more prosperous Middle East. Again, that's going to be a very bumpy road. One would have hoped that Indonesia, given some of the initial reporting a few days ago, would have been the first to actually do this, given the alleged trip that was supposed to take place to Israel. But nonetheless, hope springs eternal here.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking alongside the president of Egypt, President Trump said that phase 2 of his peace plan is already underway. He says the next step is about stabilizing Gaza, getting humanitarian aid in, and laying the groundwork for massive reconstruction. Ruthie, what do you make of this?
Well, I think that he may be overly optimistic. First of all, there has been mass amounts of aid into Gaza throughout this time, right, despite the lot spread about it. Mm-hmm. And the main thing is not to let Hamas again rebuild and get its hands on the aid, et cetera, et cetera. Also, let's not forget that Hamas has already violated the first phase of the deal by not returning the 28 dead bodies. Only 4 were returned. Hamas said, well, we're having trouble finding the others. We know that Hamas is lying. It's true that maybe they haven't located every single one. But as far as our intelligence has, they certainly know where 20 of those 28 are, and they only returned 4. And this is despite the fact that Israel freed a massive amount of terrorists from Israeli prisons, those with blood on their hands, and some who are just aiders and abettors of those with blood on their hands.
Yeah, Behnam, before we go, we don't have too much time, but looking ahead, what's the biggest challenge you see in making this last?
In the short to medium term, the next phases of Trump's 20-point plan faces several hiccups, such as the disarmament of Hamas fully in Gaza, as well as, of course, getting a governance structure set up there. Ruthie, of course, mentioned getting all the deceased hostages, those who were killed as well, entirely out of Gaza. But in the medium to long term, we have to keep our eyes on the prize here. The arsonist behind many of the fires in the Middle East, be it directed against Israel or America, remains the Islamic Republic of Iran. And I think the president's comments, particularly in Egypt, were a bit up on the optimistic side when it came to being able to deal with the world's foremost state sponsor of terrorism. Lest we forget, this is a regime that is actually trying to kill the sitting president of the United States, and it always makes sure that leaders in 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue know who the arsonist is, who the adversaries are, and who the friends and allies are in the region. So finding a way to kind of nest this larger Gaza ceasefire into a maximum pressure policy against the regime in Tehran is going to be key to achieving lasting peace and security in the Middle East.
Yeah, a lot of work to still be done. Thank you, Behnam Ben Taleblu and Ruthie Bloom. Appreciate it.
Thank you.